If that 47-second video had not been posted, the whole neighborhood would still believe my stepmother's lies about the ungrateful stepdaughter. If that heavy wooden door had not slammed in my face on a snowy night, I would still be scrubbing dishes and paying their bills, convinced it was just family duty. But because a neighbor held up her phone at the exact moment I was locked out, everything changed. My name is Caroline Mercer, 29 years old, a certified emergency dispatch coordinator at Aurora Heights Medical Center, and tonight, I am standing on a sheet of black ice in my own father's driveway, shivering so violently that my teeth are clicking together like chatterbox toys. The wind in Aurora, Colorado, does not just blow, it bites. It finds the gaps in your clothing and settles against your skin like a wet, freezing towel. I am wearing my navy blue hospital scrubs, the ones I have been in for a double shift, and over them, a thin puffer coat that is now ruined. The right pocket hangs open, the fabric torn audibly just moments ago when my stepmother, Monica, shoved me through the doorframe. The down feathers are escaping one by one, drifting into the dark, snowy air like tiny, white ghosts of the dignity I just lost inside that house. My cheek throbs with a heat that contrasts sharply with the biting cold. I raise a trembling hand to touch it, wincing as my fingertips graze the tender skin where her ring caught me. Inside the house, the noise has not stopped. It is a large house, a colonial revival that my mother's life insurance policy helped pay for. But right now, it feels like a fortress built to keep me out. Through the thick oak door, I can hear Monica's voice. It is a sound I have known for 10 years, a pitch that sits somewhere between a shriek and a sob, designed to penetrate walls and shatter composure. "Ungrateful parasite!" she screams. The words are muffled but distinct, vibrating through the wood. I slave away to make this house perfect for the holidays. And this is how you repay me? You ruin Christmas because you are too selfish to cook a simple meal? I stand there, staring at the brass knocker, fighting the urge to vomit. The absurdity of it washes over me. I had just come off a 14-hour shift coordinating ambulances for heart attacks and pileups on the icy interstate, only to come here and be told I was selfish because I did not buy the specific organic mushrooms she wanted for her stuffing. "Dad?" I call out. My voice sounds small, swallowed by the wind. "Dad, please." There is a pause in the screaming, a silence that hurts more than the noise. Then, I hear him, Greg Mercer, my father.
"Monica, honey, come on. That is enough," he says.
His voice is weak. It is the voice of a man who surrendered his spine a decade ago. It is the same tone he uses when the cable bill is too high or when the steak is overcooked, a mild, non-confrontational plea that demands nothing and changes nothing. He is standing right there, probably 3 feet away on the other side of that wood. I can picture him. He is likely looking at the floor, hands in his pockets, refusing to make eye contact with the woman he married or the door he watched her slam on his daughter. He will not open it. I know that with a certainty that settles in my gut like a stone. Greg Mercer does not open doors that Monica has closed. I take a breath, the cold air searing my lungs, and knock again. I try to channel the professional detachment I use when a caller is screaming in panic on the 911 line. "I just need my keys," I say, leaning close to the door jamb, trying to keep my voice steady. "My car keys and my purse are on the kitchen island. Just hand them to me, and I will leave. I will go." I hear the heavy thud of footsteps approaching the door. But it is not the soft tread of my father. It is the sharp, aggressive click of Monica's heels. "You are not getting anything," she yells, her mouth evidently right up against the crack of the door. "You are not a daughter in this house anymore. You are a burden, a leech. Go find some other charity case to bleed dry." Then comes the sound that finalizes the night, the sharp metallic clack of the security deadbolt sliding home. She has not just closed the door, she has locked it. I step back, my boots slipping slightly on the ice. The porch light illuminates the snow swirling around me, casting long, lonely shadows across the lawn. The shame is instantaneous and burning. I am an adult woman, I save lives for a living. I pay my taxes, and I am standing outside my childhood home, locked out like a stray dog because I forgot to be grateful enough for the privilege of being a servant. I wrap my arms around myself, trying to hold the torn coat closed. Across the street, the motion sensor floodlight of the Brooks residence flicks on, flooding their driveway with harsh white light. I flinch, instinctively turning my face away, pulling my collar up to hide the swelling on my cheek. I do not want anyone to see. In this neighborhood, appearances are currency, and right now, I am bankrupt. The garage door across the street begins to rumble upward. I freeze. Naomi Brooks is standing there. She is about my age, maybe 30, a woman who works in social media marketing or something digital that I do not fully understand. We have never really spoken beyond a wave when retrieving mail, but I know she is sharp. I see her standing in the opening of her garage, perhaps coming out for a cigarette or to check the weather. She stops. She sees me. From where she stands, the tableau must be pathetic. The daughter of the Mercer house, shivering in the snow. The door shut tight behind her, the muffled sound of a woman screaming insults still drifting across the street. Naomi does not look away. She does not politely pretend she did not see the domestic humiliation unfolding on the pristine cul-de-sac. Instead, I see her hand go to her pocket. She pulls out her phone. My stomach drops. Please, do not, I think, panic rising in my throat. Do not film this. Do not make this real. But she does not lower it. She holds it steady, not in a blatant, gawking way, but with a deliberate, steady hand. The lens is pointed right at me, right at the porch, right at the violence hanging in the air. I want to yell at her to stop, to go back inside, but I have no fight left. The cold has seeped into my marrow. I just turn my back to her, shielding my face, and fumble for my own phone in my scrub pocket. My fingers are stiff and clumsy as I unlock the screen. I open the Uber app. My vision is blurry, tears finally freezing in the corners of my eyes. I type in the address of my small apartment on the other side of town, the one I have been paying rent on for 3 months, but have barely slept in because Monica always needs help, or Dad has a bad back, or the family needs me. 8 minutes away. 8 minutes. I can survive 8 minutes. I stand there, a statue of misery, listening to the silence that has finally fallen over the house. They have moved away from the door. Maybe they are in the kitchen now. Maybe Monica is pouring herself a glass of wine, her hands shaking with the adrenaline of her rage, telling my father how she is the victim here. Look what she made me do. Greg, she made me hit her. She knows how sensitive I am. And he is probably nodding, pouring the wine, agreeing just to keep the peace, sacrificing his daughter to feed the beast so it does not turn on him next. I pace a small circle on the porch to keep the blood moving. I count the seconds, 100, 200. I replay the last 10 years in my head, the slow erosion of my boundaries. The first time she asked me to pay for groceries because she forgot her wallet. The time she suggested I move into the basement to save money while charging me rent that went into her charity gala outfits. The way I cooked every Thanksgiving dinner since I was 19. Only to be told I ruined the gravy if it had a single lump. Just endure it, I tell myself, the mantra I have used since I was 18. Just get through tonight, tomorrow. Dad will text me when she is at yoga. He will say she was just stressed. He will Venmo me $50 as an apology. I will come back. I will cook the Christmas dinner. It is easier this way. Headlights sweep across the lawn. My Uber. A silver Toyota Camry pulls up to the curb, its engine idling with a soft purr. I take a step down the stairs, and that is when I hear the lock click again. Hope, that stupid, treacherous thing, flares in my chest. Did my father finally grow a spine? Is he coming out to bring me my keys, to apologize, to drive me home himself? The door opens 6 inches. It is not my father. It is Monica. She does not step out. She does not look at me. Through the crack, I see only her manicured hand holding my leather purse and my car keys. "Get out of here," she hisses, the venom in her voice clear and cutting in the night air. She swings her arm and hurls my belongings. She does not hand them to me. She throws them. My heavy bag hits the snowy pavement with a wet thud, spilling a tube of lipstick and a handful of tampons onto the ice. The keys land in a snowbank with a jingle that sounds like a mockery of Christmas bells. "Go," she says, loud enough for the driver to hear, loud enough for Naomi across the street to catch every syllable. "Just leave so this neighborhood does not have to be embarrassed by you anymore." Slam. The door shuts again. The deadbolt slides home. Click. I stand there for a second, staring at my purse lying in the slush. The humiliation is absolute. It feels physical, like a weight pressing down on my shoulders, forcing me to crouch down and scramble in the snow to gather my things. My hands are numb. I shove the frozen lipstick back into the bag. I dig the keys out of the drift, the metal biting into my skin. Across the street, Naomi is still there. She has not moved. The phone is still up. She has seen it all. The throw, the scatter of my personal items, the way I had to crawl to pick them up. I cannot look at her. I cannot look at the house. I just turn and walk toward the idling Uber, my head down, my breath hitching in my chest. I slide into the back seat of the Camry. The heat hits me like a physical wall, stinging my frozen face. The driver, a young guy with a beard, looks at me in the rearview mirror. His eyes widen slightly when he sees the red welt on my cheek and the tears tracking through the makeup I put on this morning. "You okay, miss?" he asks. "I am fine," I say, my voice cracking. "Just drive, please." He nods and pulls away from the curb. I look out the window as we slide past the manicured lawns and the twinkling holiday lights of the neighborhood that has watched me grow up. I see Naomi Brooks lowering her phone as her garage door begins to close. The light from her garage cuts off, plunging her driveway back into darkness. I lean my head against the cold glass of the window. I am shaking, not just from the cold now, but from the adrenaline crash. I close my eyes and try to breathe. It is over, I think. Nobody has to know how bad it got. I will just tell people I slipped on the ice. I will tell them I decided to work Christmas instead. I watch the familiar streets blur by, the large, comfortable houses giving way to the main road. I have no idea that back on that quiet cul-de-sac, in the digital cloud, a 47-second file is currently processing on Naomi Brooks' phone. I do not know that she is standing in her kitchen right now, replaying the moment Monica threw my bag into the snow, debating a caption. I do not know that while I sit here, thinking I am protecting my family's reputation by staying silent, the fuse has already been lit. I am worrying about how to hide the bruise on my face for my shift tomorrow. Completely unaware that by sunrise, strangers in the Aurora Lakes Community Facebook group will be zooming in on that very bruise. I think I am just a daughter who got locked out. I do not yet know that I'm about to become the girl in the video. The car turns onto the highway, merging into the traffic, and I leave the house behind, thinking the worst part of the night is over. I am wrong. It is just beginning. To understand how a 29-year-old woman ends up shivering on a frozen driveway while her stepmother screams about mushrooms, you have to look at the architecture of the trap. It was not built in a day. It was constructed brick by brick, guilt trip by guilt trip, over 3 years of silence and compliance. It started after my mother died. Ovarian cancer is a thief that takes everything: your energy, your hope, and eventually, your bank account. I was living in Phoenix at the time, working as an emergency dispatch coordinator after getting my nursing degree. I had a life there. I had a studio apartment with a cactus on the balcony and a lease with my name on it, but when Mom passed, she left behind a mountain of medical debt that her life insurance barely touched, and a husband who looked like he had forgotten how to breathe. Greg, my father, was a shell. He was a man who had never written a check or cooked a meal in 30 years of marriage. When he met Monica 6 months after the funeral, I was relieved. I truly was. She was vibrant. She was the CEO of the Bright Horizons Foundation, a local nonprofit that supposedly helped underprivileged youth. She wore tailored blazers and spoke in a soft, melodic voice about community and giving back. I thought she was saving him. I did not realize she was just acquiring a new asset. The financial pressure was the first lock on the cage. I had my own student loans, plus the debt from Mom's treatments that I had voluntarily taken on to spare Dad the stress. When Monica suggested I move back to Aurora to save on rent and help Dad transition into this new life, it sounded like a mercy. "Come home, Caroline," she had said over a speakerphone dinner, her voice warm like melted butter. "The house is too big for just the two of us. You can save money, pay off those loans, and we can be a real family." I moved back into the house I grew up in, but not into my old room. That had been turned into a meditation space for Monica. I was put in the finished basement. It was a single room with a small, rectangular window near the ceiling that looked out directly at the tires of the cars parked in the driveway. It smelled perpetually of damp earth and laundry detergent, as the washer and dryer were right outside my thin door. The dynamic shifted so slowly I did not feel it happening. At first, it was just compliments. Monica would lean against the counter while I made a sandwich and say, "You are so efficient, Caroline. I burn water. I do not know how you do it." Then came the first Thanksgiving. "I have the board of directors coming," Monica had said, looking frantic, pressing a hand to her forehead. "The caterer canceled. Caroline, you worked in a cafeteria in college, right? Could you just help me prep? Just the basics." Just the basics turned into me waking up at 4 a.m. to brine a 20-pound turkey. It turned into me peeling 5 pounds of potatoes while Monica and her daughter, Sophie, went to get manicures so they would look presentable for the guests. Sophie was 22 then, a lifestyle influencer with 5,000 followers who spent her days arranging ring lights and talking to her phone. While I was covered in flour and turkey grease, sweating in a kitchen that was already overheating from the double ovens, Sophie sat at the kitchen island, sipping an iced latte I had made for her. She snapped a photo of the spread, the cranberry sauce I had made from scratch, the stuffing with the expensive chestnuts I had shelled by hand. "Family traditions," she captioned it, posting it to her story. She did not tag me. I was just the blur in the background, the pair of hands placing a tray in the oven. By the time dinner was served, I was exhausted. I had been on my feet for 12 hours. I remember taking off my apron, ready to sit down at the far end of the table, but Monica stopped me. She put a hand on my arm, her nails perfectly manicured in a deep burgundy. "Oh, sweetie," she whispered, loud enough for Dad to hear, but quiet enough to sound intimate. "There are 12 guests. We only have 12 dining chairs, and someone needs to watch the soufflé in the oven so it does not collapse. You do not mind, do you? You are such a savior." I looked at my father. Greg Mercer sat at the head of the table, pouring wine for a local councilman. He saw me. He saw the sweat on my hairline and the fatigue in my eyes. He looked at his plate. "Help your mother out, Caroline," he mumbled, not meeting my gaze. "She is under a lot of pressure." So I ate turkey standing over the sink in the utility room while listening to the laughter upstairs. Later, when the applause broke out, I crept up the stairs to peek. Monica was standing at the head of the table, raising a glass. "To family," she beamed, "and to the incredible effort it takes to bring us all together. I put my heart into this meal for you all." "The stuffing is divine, Monica," the councilman's wife said. "Family secret?" Monica winked. I went back downstairs and scrubbed the roasting pans until my knuckles bled. That was the night I became the ghost in the machine. Over the next 2 years, this became the standard. The Bright Horizons Foundation galas were the worst. Monica hosted 3 a year at our house to save on venue costs, which she claimed allowed more money to go to the children. In reality, it just meant free labor. My labor. I became the unofficial executive chef, event planner, and janitorial staff for these events. I would finish a 12-hour shift at the dispatch center, managing life and death calls, and come home to a list taped to the refrigerator, make 300 shrimp puffs, polish the silver, iron the table linens, buy 6 cases of Pinot Grigio, the expensive kind. I never saw a dime. In fact, it cost me money. There was a group chat titled The Mercer Family that included Dad, Monica, Sophie, and me. It was a digital torture chamber. Every time I picked up an overtime shift, which I did constantly, desperate to pay down my debts, my phone would ping. Dad's transmission is acting up again. Monica would text, "The mechanic says it is $600. We are a bit tight this month with the charity overhead. Caroline, since you are working extra, could you cover this? We are all in this together." Or, "The roof leaked in the master bedroom. Insurance won't cover the deductible. It is $1,000. We put a roof over your head for free, so it feels fair." For free. That was always the weapon. They acted as if letting me sleep in the damp basement of a house my mother paid for was a supreme act of benevolence. I started keeping a notebook. It was a small, black spiral-bound thing I kept hidden under my mattress, a habit from my nursing days where documentation was survival. I wrote down every single transaction. August 12th, $400 for Sophie's online marketing mastermind course. Monica said it was an investment for the family. September 5th, $250 for groceries for the Labor Day barbecue. I did not eat at the barbecue. October 20th, $800 for Dad's dental crown. He has insurance. Monica said they used the cash for a deposit on a venue for the winter gala. I flipped through the pages one night, doing the math. In the last year alone, I had transferred nearly $24,000 to them or paid for their expenses directly. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Aurora was maybe $1,400 a month. I was paying nearly double that to live in a basement with no lease, no privacy, and a family that treated me like a servant. But guilt is a powerful adhesive. Every time I thought about leaving, Greg would catch me in the kitchen. He would look old, his shoulders slumped, his eyes watery. "I do not know what I would do without you. Carrie," he would say, using my childhood nickname. "Monica. She is not like your mother. She does not know how to run a house. She gets overwhelmed. You are the strong one. You are the glue holding us up." He made my exploitation sound like a virtue. He framed my slavery as strength, and I bought it. I bought it because I wanted him to love me more than he feared her. The breaking point was building, though I did not see it coming until the night of the lockout. It was the afternoon of the 23rd of December. I was at the hospital, sitting in the break room. The vending machine was humming loudly in the corner. I had just finished coordinating a massive response to a bus crash on I-70. My headset was still around my neck, and my adrenaline was crashing hard. I opened my banking app on my phone. I needed to buy gas to get home. Available balance, $7.42. I stared at the screen. I had just been paid 2 days ago, but yesterday, the Mercer family chat had lit up. Monica had claimed the furnace needed an emergency repair or we would all freeze for Christmas. She said it was $1,200. I had transferred it immediately, terrified of Dad being cold. $7. I was 29 years old. I worked 60 hours a week saving lives, and I could not afford a sandwich from the cafeteria. My phone buzzed in my hand, a new message from Monica. "Honey, I realize the old dinner plates are scratched. The board members will notice. I need you to order that set of bone china we saw at the mall. It is expedited shipping, so it will be about $400. Put it on your card. I will pay you back after the fundraising checks clear next week." I stared at the words, "I will pay you back." The lie sat there on the screen, glaring at me. She had never paid me back, not for the car repairs, not for the groceries, not for Sophie's marketing course that she quit after 2 weeks. I typed back, my fingers shaking. "Mom, I have $7 in my account. I cannot buy the plates." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then a message from Dad's phone number appeared, though the syntax was purely Monica. "Caroline, do not be dramatic. We know you picked up 3 extra shifts this pay period. If you do not want to help with the Christmas dinner, just say so. But do not lie to us about money after everything we do for you." I looked at the message, then at my bank balance, then at the gray walls of the break room. I felt something snap. It was not a loud snap, like a bone breaking. It was a quiet, internal severance. It was the sound of the glue my father talked about finally drying out and crumbling to dust. I did not reply. I put the phone in my pocket. I stood up, walked to the nurse's station, and clocked out. I walked to my car on an empty stomach, driving home on fumes, knowing that when I walked through that door, there would be hell to pay. I just did not know that the price of admission to my own home was about to become the rest of my dignity. I drove through the snow, the heater in my old Honda barely working, thinking about those plates, bone china, $400, for a dinner I would not be allowed to eat, at a table I would not be allowed to sit at. By the time I pulled into the driveway, seeing the warm glow of the windows, the rage was sitting in my throat like bile. I did not know it then, but I was done. I was absolutely done. The only problem was, they were not done with me yet. The fluorescent lights of the Aurora Heights Medical Center emergency room hummed with a frequency that I had long ago stopped hearing. It was the sound of controlled chaos, a sound I found infinitely more comforting than the silence of my father's house. Here, in the dispatch center, surrounded by glowing monitors and the crackle of radio static, I was not Caroline the Burden or Caroline the ungrateful stepdaughter. I was Caroline Mercer, the woman who knew exactly where to send a chopper when a hiker fell off a ridge in the Rockies. I was the one who could talk a panicked mother through CPR while coordinating 3 ambulances to a multi-car pileup on the icy interstate. Tonight was particularly brutal. A black ice storm had turned the highway into a demolition derby. I had been on the headset for 6 straight hours, my voice steady, my hands moving across the keyboard with the precision of a concert pianist. Unit 4, route via Colfax. The overpass is gridlocked, I said into my mic, watching the GPS dots move on my screen. ETA 5 minutes. When the rush finally subsided, leaving the ER in that strange, vibrating lull that comes after a storm, I took my headset off and rubbed the back of my neck. Across the room, I watched a family, a husband, a wife, and a teenage son, huddled around a gurney where an elderly woman lay. She had slipped on her front walk, a broken hip, painful but manageable. What struck me was not the injury, but the hands. The son was holding the grandmother's hand. The husband was rubbing the wife's back. There was a terrified, palpable love in that small curtained cubicle. They were a unit. They were grateful just to be together, grateful that she was breathing. I looked away, a sharp pang of jealousy piercing through my professional detachment. I could not remember the last time anyone in my house had looked at me with anything other than expectation or annoyance. "You are a machine tonight, Mercer," Dr. Lawson said, leaning against the counter of the nurse's station. He was the attending physician, a man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and eyes that had seen everything. He held out a lukewarm coffee. "You saved us 20 minutes on that transport. The kid in Bay 3 is alive because of that." "Just doing the job, Doctor," I said, taking the cup. The warmth seeped into my cold fingers. "It is more than the job," he said quietly. "You are the brain of this ER. Caroline, we would be lost without you." My phone buzzed on the desk, vibrating violently against the hard surface. The screen lit up with a photo of a perfectly groomed poodle, Monica's dog. It was her customized contact photo. The feeling of competence and pride I had just felt evaporated instantly, replaced by the familiar tightening in my chest. I picked it up. "Hello?" "Caroline, where are you?" Monica's voice was high, tight, and devoid of pleasantries. "I sent you the list for the dry cleaner 3 hours ago. Greg's tuxedo for the photo shoot is not here." "I am at work, Monica," I said, keeping my voice low so Lawson would not hear. "I am in the middle of a shift. I told you I would pick it up on my way home." "Well, the cleaner closes at 6, she snapped. "If you are late, the whole schedule for tomorrow is ruined. Honestly, Caroline, sometimes I feel like you sabotage these things on purpose just to stress me out." "I am not sabotaging anything," I whispered, turning my back to the room. "I am saving lives. I will get the suit. I promise." "Just get it done," she said. "And check your texts. I sent you the menu for the Christmas Eve dinner. We are hosting the board of directors for the foundation. I need 7 courses this year, not 5. And for heaven's sake, try to find something decent to wear. Do not sit at the table in those cheap nursing clothes like you did last year. It is embarrassing for the donors." The line went dead. I lowered the phone, my hand trembling slightly. I stared at the black screen, seeing my own reflection, pale, tired, with dark circles under my eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. "Everything okay?" I jumped. Dr. Lawson was still there. He had heard. Of course he had heard. "Fine," I said quickly, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face. "Just holiday stress, family stuff." Lawson looked at me for a long moment. He did not buy it. He was a doctor. He knew what pain looked like, even when there was no blood. 7 courses? He asked softly. "For a dinner party?" I nodded, unable to speak. "Caroline," he said, his voice dropping to a register of genuine concern. "Have you ever done Christmas just for yourself? Just stayed home, ordered a pizza, watched a movie, and turned off your phone?" The question hung in the air between us, absurd and foreign. Christmas for myself? The concept was so alien it was almost a different language. Christmas was a deadline. Christmas was a list of chores a mile long. Christmas was burnt fingers and swollen feet, and Monica screaming that the napkins were folded the wrong way. "I do not think I can do that," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "They rely on me." "Do they rely on you?" Lawson asked, tilting his head. "Or do they use you?" He didn't wait for an answer. He just patted my shoulder and walked away to check on a patient, leaving the question to burrow into my brain like a splinter. When I clocked out 2 hours later, I left the version of myself that commanded respect at the hospital doors. I drove to the dry cleaner, begged the owner who was locking up to let me grab the tuxedo, and then drove to the grocery store. I spent $200 of my own money on ingredients because Monica had texted to say she had left her card at the spa. By the time I got to the house, it was nearly 9 at night. The windows were glowing warmly, the perfect image of domestic bliss. I let myself in the side door, the one Monica preferred I use so I would not track snow into the main foyer, and walked into the kitchen. It was a disaster zone. Pans from breakfast were still in the sink. Sophie was sitting at the island, surrounded by makeup palettes, a ring light set up in front of her. "Hey," she said without looking up, applying a shimmering gloss to her lips. "Mom wants you to start prepping the roast for the test run. She wants to make sure the glaze is right for the party." I didn't say hello. I just put the groceries down and took off my coat. Underneath, I was still in my scrubs. I washed my hands and started chopping onions. My feet throbbed. My back ached. For the next 3 hours, I cooked, I seared the meat, I reduced the balsamic glaze, I roasted the root vegetables. The smell of rosemary and garlic, which should have been appetizing, just made me nauseous. When the roast was perfect, gleaming and golden brown, I pulled it out of the oven. Monica swept into the kitchen at that exact moment, wearing a silk robe and holding a glass of wine. "Oh, finally," she said, inspecting the meat. "It looks a little dry on the left side. Caroline, you need to baste it more often. We cannot serve dry meat to the board." She stepped back. "Sophie, honey, come take a picture for the page. The lighting is perfect right now." Sophie hopped off her stool. She arranged a few sprigs of fresh holly around the platter, moved my dirty prep bowls out of the frame, and held up her phone. "Perfect," Sophie said, snapping a dozen photos. 10 minutes later, I was scrubbing the roasting pan, my hands raw from the hot water and steel wool. My phone buzzed on the counter. A notification from Instagram. Sophie had posted the photo. "Nothing beats the holidays at home." The caption read, "Mom's famous balsamic roast is ready for the big night. The house smells like heaven. Family blessed mom chef." I stared at the words. Mom's famous roast. Monica had not touched the stove. She had not even bought the meat. She had been drinking wine while I inhaled onion fumes. "Is something wrong?" Greg asked. My father had wandered into the kitchen for a glass of water. He was wearing his pajamas. He looked at me, then at the phone in my hand, then at the pile of dirty dishes I was working through. Sophie credited Monica for the roast, I said, my voice flat. Greg sighed. The sound of a tire slowly losing air. Caroline, does it matter? It is just social media. It makes your mother happy. It helps the foundation's image. You know she can't cook. Let her have the little victory. It is not her victory, Dad, I said, scrubbing a stubborn bit of char. It is my labor. You are part of this family, he said, turning to leave. We all pitch in. That is what families do. But we did not all pitch in. That was becoming clearer by the day. 2 days later, the humiliation escalated from digital erasure to physical exclusion. I came home from a day shift to find 3 strange cars in the driveway. A professional photography crew was setting up lights in the living room. Monica, Greg, and Sophie were dressed in coordinated outfits, shades of cream, beige, and soft gold. They looked like a magazine cover. I walked in, still in my navy blue scrubs, my badge hanging from my neck. Oh, good. You are here, Monica said, not looking at my face but at my clothes. We are doing the Christmas card photos early. The photographer had a cancellation. For a split second, I thought she wanted me to change. I thought maybe there was a cream sweater waiting for me upstairs. Can you move your car? Monica continued, gesturing vaguely toward the window. It is an eyesore in the background of the shots through the bay window. Park it down the street. And actually, while you are out there, can you keep an eye on the photographer's equipment van? He is worried about leaving it unlocked. I stood there, blinking. You want me to guard the van while you take the family photo? Well, look at you. Caroline, Monica said, laughing lightly as if I were being ridiculous. You are wearing blue. We are doing a neutral palette this year. You would clash. Besides, you hate photos. You always look so stiff. Just for 20 minutes, Carrie, Dad said, adjusting his tie. He looked uncomfortable, but he did not tell her to stop. He did not say, wait, let her change. She is my daughter. Fine, I said. I moved my car. Then I stood on the driveway, in the freezing wind, watching the van, inside the house, through the large bay window. I could see them. Monica was laughing, her head thrown back, her hand on Dad's chest. Sophie was smiling that perfect, practiced smile. The photographer was snapping away. They looked like the perfect family, the wealthy philanthropist, the doting husband, the beautiful daughter. There was no space for the nurse in the blue scrubs. I was shivering, hugging my arms around my chest, when a car slowed down on the street. It was Naomi Brooks, the neighbor from across the cul-de-sac. She rolled down her window as she pulled into her driveway. Caroline, she called out, are you locked out? No, I said, my teeth chattering. Just waiting, watching the van for the photographer. Naomi looked at the house. She could see them posing by the fireplace. She looked back at me, standing in the cold, guarding equipment for a photo I wasn't allowed to be in. Do you want a coat? She asked. I have a spare blanket in the trunk. I am fine, I lied. They will be done soon. Naomi didn't say anything else, but the look she gave me was not pity. It was confusion. It was the look you give a puzzle that doesn't fit together. She drove into her garage, but I saw her look back once more before the door closed. She was starting to see. The final crack in the foundation happened the night before the lockout. Monica had some of her ladies over for wine, the inner circle of the Bright Horizons Foundation. I was in the dining room, clearing the appetizer plates, invisible to them as usual. You are so generous to take her in, one of the women was saying. I froze. They were talking about me. Well, what could we do? Monica's voice was hushed, theatrical. After her mother died, poor Greg was drowning, and Caroline, well, she was in such debt, student loans, credit cards. If we hadn't stepped in, she would have declared bankruptcy. We paid off everything. It set the foundation back a bit, personally. But family is family. I gripped the stack of plates so hard I thought they would shatter. Lies. It was all lies. The reality was simpler and much uglier. When my mother died, her life insurance policy had been substantial. Greg had used almost all of it to buy this house, this sprawling colonial revival monstrosity that Monica demanded because it suited her status. The down payment, the renovations, the furniture. It was all paid for with the money my mother had meant for my future. I hadn't been saved from debt. I had been robbed of my inheritance. And now I was being painted as a charity case to explain why I was living in the basement. I walked into the kitchen and set the plates down with a clatter. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I wanted to march in there and scream the truth. I wanted to tell them that the wine they were drinking was paid for by the overtime hours I worked last week. I wanted to tell them that Monica hadn't paid a bill in 3 years. But I didn't. I washed the plates. I dried them. I put them away. Because that is what I did. I was the fixer. I was the one who absorbed the shock so the Mercer family image wouldn't crack. But as I stood there, staring at the bubbles in the sink, Dr. Lawson's question came back to me, louder this time. Do they rely on you, or do they use you? I looked at the calendar on the wall. December 23rd. Tomorrow was the big party. Tomorrow I was expected to cook 7 courses. Tomorrow I was expected to be invisible. I dried my hands on a towel. I felt a strange calmness settling over me, a coldness that matched the weather outside. I wasn't ready to leave yet. Fear is a heavy anchor. But I was done believing the lie. I wasn't a daughter paying back a debt. I was a hostage paying a ransom, and sooner or later, the money was going to run out. The specific type of exhaustion that comes after a double shift in the emergency dispatch center is not just physical. It is a hollowing out of the soul. My bones felt like lead pipes wrapped in bruised flesh, and my mind was a static fuzz of radio codes and panicked voices. I was wearing my navy blue scrubs, the ones with the small coffee stain on the hem from 4 o'clock A, and over them, I had thrown my winter coat. In my hands, I carried 3 heavy reusable canvas bags filled with organic produce, Wagyu beef, and specialty cheeses, the supplies for Monica's impromptu Christmas Eve gala that was happening the next day. I kicked the snow off my boots on the porch, took a deep breath of the freezing air to steady myself, and opened the door. The warmth of the house hit me first, smelling of cinnamon and expensive cedar candles. It should have been welcoming. Instead, it felt like walking into a pressurized cabin. Monica was in the kitchen, pacing. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my car, and she was holding a clipboard. When she saw me, she did not say hello. She did not ask how the shift went, or if I had saved any lives today. She walked straight to the bags I had set down on the granite island and began tearing them open. "You are late," she said, her voice tight. "I told you I needed to start the marinade by 7. It is 8:15. There was a pileup on the interstate. "Monica," I said, my voice raspy. "I couldn't just leave the desk. People were trapped in their cars." She ignored me, rummaging through the second bag. Suddenly, she stopped. She pulled out a carton of mushrooms, standard, organic baby Bellas from the high-end grocery store she insisted I use. She held them up like I had just handed her a dead rat. "What are these?" she asked. "Mushrooms," I said, leaning against the counter, trying to take the weight off my feet. "For the stuffing." "I told you specifically," she enunciated, spacing out the words as if speaking to a slow child, "that I wanted the wild chanterelles from the import section, the ones in the blue box. These are common. These are what you put on a cheap pizza." "They were out of the chanterelles," I said. "It is 2 days before Christmas. The store was a zoo. These are organic. Nobody's going to know the difference inside a turkey." Monica slammed the carton down on the counter hard enough to bruise the contents. "I will know the difference. The board will know the difference. God. Caroline, do you ever listen? Or is your brain so fried from answering phones all day that you cannot follow a simple instruction?" Something inside me, a wire that had been pulled taut for 3 years, began to vibrate. "I am not just answering phones," I said quietly. "I am coordinating life support, and I am tired. Monica, I bought your groceries with my money because you forgot to transfer the funds again. I am not going to run back out. She turned on me, her eyes narrowing. The air in the kitchen shifted. Greg, my father, was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through his iPad. He stopped scrolling. He sensed the barometer dropping, but as usual, he did not look up. He just hunched his shoulders, making himself smaller. Excuse me? Monica stepped closer, invading my personal space. She smelled of white wine and expensive perfume. You are not going to do what? You live under my roof. Caroline, you eat my food. You use my heat. And when I ask for one small favor to help this family maintain its standing in this community, you give me attitude? I am not an employee, I said. The words tasted strange in my mouth, foreign but necessary. I am not your maid, and I am not your caterer, and honestly, Monica, I am not even a guest, because I am not invited to sit at the table tomorrow, right? You told me to eat in the kitchen so I wouldn't ruin the aesthetic. Monica's face flushed a deep, blotchy red. You ungrateful little brat, after everything we have done for you, we took you in when you were drowning in debt. We gave you a home. I have a home, I snapped. I have an apartment. I have been paying rent on a studio for 3 months because I cannot stand being here anymore. I only came back tonight to bring you your damn groceries and get my mail. The admission hung in the air. I hadn't meant to say it. I had been keeping the apartment a secret. A lifeboat I was slowly inflating while the ship went down. Monica looked at me, and then she laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. You have an apartment? With what money? Oh, let me guess. You have been skimming from the grocery runs? Or maybe you are just racking up more debt that your father will have to pay off when you inevitably crash and burn again. I have never taken a dime from you, I said, my voice rising. I pay for everything. I pay for the repairs. I pay for the parties. I pay for Sophie's whims. You are a burden, she screamed, abandoning the pretense of calm. You have been a millstone around Greg's neck since the day your mother died. You are just like her, weak, needy, and pathetic.
That was it. The line in the sand.
I stood up straight, ignoring the pain in my back. I looked her dead in the eye. Do not talk about my mother, and do not talk about this house like you own it. You seem to forget that my mother's name is still on the deed to this place. This isn't your house, Monica. It is hers, and technically, a third of it is mine. The silence that followed was absolute. I saw the color drain from her face, replaced instantly by a flash of pure, unadulterated rage. I had touched the third rail. I had threatened her security. She moved faster than I thought possible. Her hand lashed out, a blur of movement, and the slap connected with my cheek with a wet, cracking sound. My head snapped to the side. The sting was immediate and blinding, radiating from my cheekbone to my ear. I stumbled back, grabbing the counter for support. My hand flew to my face, my brain struggling to process the violence. Monica! Greg stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. But he didn't move toward her. He didn't step between us. He just stood there, looking horrified and paralyzed. You bitch, Monica hissed, her chest heaving. How dare you threaten me in my own home? I didn't threaten you, I said, my voice shaking, tears pricking my eyes, not from sadness, but from shock. You just hit me. Get out, she whispered. Then she screamed it. Get out of my house. She lunged at me again. I backed away, raising my hands to protect my face. But she wasn't trying to hit me this time. She was shoving me. She pushed me hard against the chest, forcing me backward toward the mudroom door. I am leaving, I yelled, trying to regain my balance. Stop touching me. I just need my keys. You get nothing, she shrieked. She grabbed the canvas bag of groceries, the one with the expensive beef and the wrong mushrooms, and hurled it toward the door. It hit the wall with a heavy thud. She shoved me again, and I stumbled through the doorway, out onto the back porch. The change in temperature was violent. 1 second I was in the heated kitchen. The next, the biting wind of the Colorado winter was cutting through my thin scrub top. I hadn't had time to zip my coat. I almost slipped on the ice that had formed on the concrete step. I caught myself on the railing, gasping. "Monica, please," Greg's voice floated out, weak and pathetic. "Let her get her purse." "No!" Monica stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the warm light of the kitchen, and then she did something that chilled me more than the snow. She started screaming. "Help! Stop it! You are hurting me! Greg, call the police! She is attacking me!" I stood there, frozen on the ice, staring at her in disbelief. I was 10 feet away from her. I had not touched her. My hands were empty, but she was putting on a performance, screaming for a non-existent audience, setting the narrative before the cops even arrived. "I am not touching you," I cried out, my voice cracking. "You are crazy!" Across the street, the automatic garage door of the Brooks house began to rumble upward. The sound was mechanical and rhythmic, cutting through the shrieking. I saw Naomi Brooks standing in the opening of her garage. She was wearing a thick parka, holding a recycling bin. She stopped. She looked across the street. From her vantage point, the scene must have been stark. The bright kitchen light spilled out onto the dark patio. Monica, manicured and wealthy, was standing in the doorway, screaming about being attacked. I was standing in the snow, wearing scrubs, clutching my cheek, looking terrified and small. Monica didn't see Naomi. She was too focused on her performance. She grabbed the door handle. "You are a danger to this family," she yelled, loud enough for the entire neighborhood to hear. "Do not come back until you get psychiatric help." She kicked the bag of groceries that had landed near the threshold. A carton of eggs shattered, the yolks freezing instantly on the doormat. "Monica, wait." Greg appeared behind her. I saw him clearly. He was standing right there. He looked at me, shivering in the snow. He looked at his wife, whose face was twisted in a mask of manufactured terror. He could have reached out. He could have grabbed the door. He could have thrown me a set of keys. Instead, he looked down. He put his hands in his pockets. Monica slammed the door. The sound was like a gunshot. Then came the sound that broke me. Click. The deadbolt sliding home. Then the secondary click of the security latch. I stood there. The silence rushed back in, heavy and suffocating. The wind howled around the corner of the house. I could feel the heat radiating from my slapped cheek, a throbbing pulse that matched the beat of my heart. "Dad?" I whispered. No answer. The lights in the kitchen stayed on, but the blinds were abruptly yanked down. I turned around, dazed. My car keys were inside. My purse was inside. My coat was torn where she had grabbed it. Across the street, Naomi Brooks was still standing there. She hadn't moved. And then I saw it. Her arm was raised. She was holding her phone up, steady and deliberate. At that moment, my brain couldn't fully process what she was doing. I thought maybe she was calling the police, or maybe she was texting someone. I didn't realize she had been recording. I didn't realize that for the last 47 seconds, she had captured everything. The shove, the scream, the lies, the silence of my father, and the door slamming in my face. I couldn't face her. The shame was a physical weight, heavier than the exhaustion. I didn't want a neighbor to ask if I was okay. I didn't want to explain why my own father had just watched me get thrown into a snowbank. I fumbled in the pocket of my scrubs, my phone. Thank God I kept it on me at the hospital. My fingers were stiff and clumsy as I unlocked the screen. I ordered an Uber. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the device. 8 minutes away, I walked down the driveway, away from the house, away from the door that was now forbidden to me. I stood on the sidewalk, under the pool of light from the street lamp, trying to stop crying. "Just get through tonight," I told myself, wiping my eyes with my sleeve. "It is just a fight. It is just Monica being Monica. Tomorrow, she will spin it. She will say she was stressed. Dad will call. It will go back to normal." I believed that. I truly believed that this was just another ugly episode in a private family drama. I thought the only people who knew what happened were the three of us inside that kitchen and the silent, snowy night. The Uber pulled up. I got in. burying my face in my scarf, hiding the bruise that was already starting to form. "Rough night?" the driver asked, glancing at the house.
You have no idea, I mumbled.
As the car pulled away, I didn't look back at Naomi's house. I didn't know that she was currently standing in her kitchen, her thumb hovering over the post button on the neighborhood Facebook group. I didn't know that while I was thinking about how to hide this shame. She was thinking about how to expose it. I thought I had lost. I didn't know that. Thanks to 47 seconds of video, the war had just begun. For the first 48 hours after the video went live, I existed in a state of paralysis that felt less like liberation and more like a fever dream. I sat in my empty apartment, wrapped in a blanket that smelled of cardboard boxes, watching the notification light on my phone pulse like a heartbeat. The logical part of my brain knew that the comments flooding the neighborhood group were supportive. People were outraged. They were defending me. But the part of my brain that had been trained by Monica for 3 years, the part that had been conditioned to smooth over every rough edge and silence every conflict, was screaming in panic. I had an overwhelming, nauseating urge to fix it. I actually typed out a draft post on Tuesday morning. I sat there, my thumb hovering over the keypad, writing, "Hi everyone, thank you for your concern, but please stop sharing the video. My stepmother was under a lot of stress with the charity gala. We are a family, and families fight. Please respect us." I almost posted it. I almost threw myself on the grenade one last time to save the reputation of the people who had locked me out in the snow. I wanted the noise to stop. I wanted the shame of being that girl from the video to evaporate. I thought if I apologized for them, maybe my father would call me. Maybe he would say, "Good girl. Carrie, you fixed it. Come home." But I did not post it. I ran out of battery before I could hit send, and by the time the phone charged, the moment had passed. Returning to work at Aurora Heights Medical Center was the hardest thing I have ever had to do. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I was terrified of walking through those sliding glass doors. I thought I would see judgment. I thought my colleagues, the doctors and nurses I respected, would look at me and see a messy, dramatic victim. I thought they would think I was weak for letting it happen. I walked into the dispatch center with my head down, staring at the linoleum, ready to dodge eye contact.
Caroline.
I flinched. It was Sarah, one of the triage nurses. She was standing by the coffee station. Before I could say anything, before I could stammer out an excuse about my bruised face, she crossed the room and wrapped her arms around me. It wasn't a polite hug. It was a fierce, protective embrace. "I saw it," she whispered into my ear. "We all saw it. I am so sorry. Honey, you did not deserve that." I stiffened, waiting for the but maybe you should have listened. But she is your mother. It never came. Throughout the shift, it kept happening. Paramedics who usually only spoke to me in radio codes nodded at me with grim solidarity. A resident brought me a bagel and simply said, "If you need a place to crash, my guest room is empty." There was no judgment. There was only anger, not at me, but for me. Dr. Lawson found me in the break room during a lull. I was staring at my phone, reading a text from Greg that simply said, "You need to take that video down. Monica is inconsolable." Lawson sat down opposite me. He didn't ask how I was. He looked at the bruise on my cheek, which had turned a sickly shade of green and yellow. "Have you talked to social services yet?" he asked. "I am 29, doctor," I said, forcing a laugh that sounded brittle. "I am not a child. Social services is for kids." "Social services is for vulnerable people in abusive situations," Lawson said, his voice flat and serious. "Domestic violence does not have an age limit, Caroline, and financial coercion is violence. Emotional abuse is violence. You are looking at this like a family squabble. I am looking at this as a trauma surgeon, and I see a patient who is bleeding out, even if I cannot see the wound." He pushed a piece of paper across the table. It was a name and an extension. Mara Daniels, Hospital Social Work. "Go talk to her," he said. Just for 10 minutes. If you do not want to do it for yourself, do it because you would tell any patient in your chair to do the same thing. He was right. If a caller told me they had been locked out in the snow and hit by a family member, I would have sent police. Why was I treating myself with less urgency than a stranger? I went to see Mara on my lunch break. Her office was small, filled with potted plants that looked far healthier than I felt. She was a woman with kind eyes and a demeanor that suggested she could walk through a hurricane without blinking. I told her the story. I tried to minimize it at first. I used words like complicated and high expectations. I talked about how stressful the holidays were for Monica. Mara listened, taking notes. When I finished, she put her pen down. "Caroline," she said, "I want to play a game. I want you to strip away the titles. Forget the words fathers and stepmother. Imagine you are renting a room from a landlord. You pay rent. You pay for repairs. You work for the landlord's business for free. And one night, the landlord hits you, throws your property in the snow, and locks you out because you bought the wrong mushrooms. What would you tell me then?" I opened my mouth to answer, and then I stopped. The silence stretched out in the room, heavy and suffocating. "I would tell you to call the cops," I whispered. "I would tell you to sue them." "Exactly," Mara said. "Biology and marriage certificates do not grant immunity for abuse. You are not a bad daughter for protecting yourself. You are a tenant who has been evicted illegally and assaulted." She asked about the finances. I hesitated, then pulled out the small black notebook I had carried in my bag for months. I opened it to the pages where I had meticulously tracked every dollar I had spent on the Mercer household in the last year. Mara went through it line by line. Her eyebrows climbed higher with every page. "The roof repair," she read, $1,200, the catering for the spring gala, $600, Sophie's tuition deposit, Greg's dental work. She did some quick math on a calculator. When she looked up, her expression was hard. "In the last 12 months, you have given them nearly $18,000, she said. "Caroline, that is not contributing to the household. That is a salary. You are paying them a salary to abuse you. This is an exploitation model. They are not keeping you around because they love you. They are keeping you around because you are profitable." The word hung in the air. Profitable. It hit me harder than the slap. I wasn't a daughter. I was an asset. I was a line item in Monica's budget that allowed her to buy more shoes and look charitable to her friends. I left Mara's office feeling nauseous, but the fog was lifting. The shame was beginning to curdle into something else, something hot and sharp. That evening, Naomi came over to my apartment. She brought a bottle of wine and a folder. She looked around at my bare mattress and the single lamp and shook her head. "We are going to get your stuff," she said firmly. "But first, you need to talk to someone." She opened the folder. "This is Jordan Hale. He is a friend from college. He does pro bono work for housing rights and domestic disputes. I sent him the video and a summary of what you told me about the house." She dialed a number and put it on speaker. Jordan Hale sounded young, but his voice had the razor-sharp edge of someone who enjoyed a fight. "Caroline," he said, skipping the pleasantries. "I have been looking at public records for the property on Elm Street. Naomi tells me your father claims he is struggling financially, and that is why you have to pay for everything." "That is what they say," I said. "The mortgage is high." "That is interesting," Jordan said, "because according to the county clerk, there is no mortgage on that house. It was bought cash 10 years ago." I froze. "What?" "It was a cash purchase," Jordan repeated. "And I did a little digging into the probate records from when your mother passed. Her life insurance policy and the sale of her previous estate were substantial. It looks like that money was funneled directly into the purchase of the Elm Street house." My head was spinning. "But Monica always said the house was her investment. She said the foundation's money helped buy it." "Monica is lying," Jordan said. "And here's the kicker. If that house was bought with your mother's inheritance money, depending on how the will was structured, you might not just be a tenant. You might be a part owner. Greg might have used funds that were held in trust for you." I sat back against the cold wall of my apartment. Memories flashed through my mind. Greg handing me papers to sign when I was 19, saying they were just formalities to manage Mom's estate. Me signing them without reading because I was grieving and I trusted him. "He stole from me," I whispered. "We need to prove it," Jordan said. "I need you to find everything, every text where they asked for money, every email, every receipt you have in that notebook. If we can prove a pattern of financial abuse and connect the house purchase to your mother's estate, we can freeze them out. We can stop them from selling the house."
"Selling the house?" I asked.
"If Monica is as image-conscious as she seems," Jordan said, "her first instinct when this scandal gets too big will be to liquidate and run. We cannot let that happen." That night, I did not sleep. I sat on the floor with my phone and my laptop, conducting an archaeological dig into my own exploitation. I scrolled back 3 years in my text history. It was grueling. I had to read the manipulation in cold, hard text. Feb 12th. Monica. "Sweetie, the car payment is due and the foundation check hasn't cleared. If you love us, you will cover it, unless you want your father to walk to work." May 4th. Greg. "Carrie, I know you are saving for your own place, but the water heater blew. We need $2,000. Monica is so stressed she's getting migraines. Please, for me." July 10th. Monica. "If you are not going to cook for the party, do not bother coming home. This is not a hotel. You earn your keep or you get out." I screenshotted everything, hundreds of images. I organized them into folders, threats, money requests, emotional blackmail. With every screenshot, the image of the dutiful daughter I had tried so hard to be crumbled a little more. I saw the pattern Mara had talked about. It was systematic. They would break me down with criticism, then ask for money to make up for my failures. They would threaten homelessness, then take my rent money. Around 3 a.m, my eyes burning, I opened the video file one last time. I sat there in the dark and watched it, but this time, I didn't watch it as Caroline the victim. I didn't look at my shaking hands or my terrified face. I looked at Monica. I saw the way she positioned herself in the light. I saw the theatricality of her scream. I saw the cold, calculated way she checked to see if Greg was backing her up before she slammed the door. And I looked at Greg. I saw a man who had sold his daughter to keep his wife happy. A man who was standing in a house bought with my mother's money, watching his new wife throw my mother's daughter into the snow. I didn't cry. The tears had dried up hours ago. A strange, cold sensation filled my chest. It felt like steel hardening. I closed the laptop. I picked up my phone and opened the family group chat. There were dozens of messages from Monica, ranging from, "We can talk about this," to, "You are ruining us." I did not reply to them. Instead, I typed a message to Jordan. "I have the evidence. I have the receipts. I am ready." Then I looked at the contact for Dad. I hesitated for a second, my thumb hovering over the block button. I thought about the man who used to carry me on his shoulders. I thought about the man who taught me to ride a bike. Then I looked at the bruise on my face in the reflection of the dark window. I realized that man had died the same day my mother did. The man left behind was just a landlord who had forgotten to pay his debts. I didn't block him. I needed him to receive the legal notices. But in my heart, I cut the cord. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the snowy street. I was alone. I was broke. I was tired. But for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't afraid of her. I wasn't going back to cook the Christmas dinner. I wasn't going to buy the apology gift. I wasn't going to fix this. I was going to burn it down, and I was going to use the paper trail they had created to light the match. The transition from victim to plaintiff does not happen in a single burst of adrenaline. It happens in a series of quiet, suffocating rooms filled with paperwork. 3 days after the lockout, I was sitting in the cramped, coffee-scented office of Jordan Hale. He was not the kind of lawyer Monica would hire. He did not have a mahogany desk or a view of the Rockies. He worked out of a converted storefront between a laundromat and a vape shop, and his desk was a chaotic sea of manila folders. But when he looked at me, his eyes were sharp, predatory, and entirely focused on the kill. I got the file from your mother's old estate attorney, Jordan said, sliding a thick document across the desk. It took a few threats of a subpoena, but they coughed it up. Apparently, they had been trying to reach you for years, but all their correspondence was intercepted. I picked up the document. It smelled old, like dust and vanilla. Last will and testament of Elizabeth Mercer. My hands shook as I turned the pages. I had not seen this since I was 22. Grieving and numb, when Greg told me he would handle everything, so I did not have to worry. Look at page 12, clause 4, Jordan said, tapping the paper with a pen. I read it. The legal jargon was dense, but the meaning was clear enough to stop my heart. Upon the beneficiary, Caroline Mercer, reaching the age of 25, 30% of the total equity of the primary residence purchased with the proceeds of the life insurance policy shall transfer to her name immediately. I stared at the words, age 25. I am 29, I whispered. I turned 25 4 years ago. Exactly, Jordan said. He pulled another sheet of paper from a separate stack. And this is the smoking gun. This is an email chain between the estate lawyer and your father's email address, dated 3 months before your 25th birthday. He handed it to me. Subject: Transfer of deed title. C. Mercer, from Estate Law Partners, to Greg Mercer, Realty. Dear Mr. Mercer, this is a reminder that the partial transfer of deed title to Caroline is approaching on November 12th. We need her to come in to sign the acceptance forms. Please have her contact us. And then, the reply. It was sent from my father's account, but the syntax was unmistakable. It used words like erroneous and familial discretion. It was Monica. Reply: Caroline is currently unstable and dealing with significant debt. We have decided as a family to postpone this transfer to protect the asset from her creditors. She is aware and has agreed to waive her rights for the time being. Do not contact her directly. It upsets her condition. I felt the air leave the room. She lied, I said, my voice sounding hollow. She told them I was unstable. She told them I waived my rights. And then, Jordan continued, leaning forward, she charged you rent for 4 years. Caroline, you have been paying rent to live in a house you partially own. You have been paying for repairs on a roof that was already 30% yours. You have been cooking for parties in a kitchen where you were legally the landlady, not the maid. The rage that filled me then was not hot. It was absolute zero. It froze the tears in my ducts. It hardened the soft parts of my heart that still wanted to believe my father was just a helpless bystander. He was on that email chain. He knew. Every time he told me I was lucky, Monica let me stay. He knew he was stealing from me. What do we do? I asked. We go to war, Jordan said. But we do it legally. Step 1 is the restraining order. We are filing for an emergency order of protection based on the assault and the illegal eviction. The video is our primary evidence. It shows clear physical aggression, emotional volatility, and endangerment. You were locked out in freezing temperatures without a coat. No judge in Colorado is going to look at that and see a family squabble. They are going to see a dangerous environment. He pulled out a stack of forms. Step 2 is the foundation. He smiled then, a tight, grim expression. You told me Monica cares about her image more than anything. So, we are going to send a formal letter to the board of directors of Bright Horizons, and we are going to copy their top 3 corporate donors. We are going to inform them that their CEO is currently under investigation for domestic abuse and financial fraud involving a vulnerable family member, and we are going to suggest, very politely, that they might want to audit their books to make sure none of the foundation's money has been used to cover personal legal liabilities. She will lose her mind, I said. She will lose her funding, Jordan corrected, which is the only language she speaks. And step 3? We freeze the house, Jordan said. I am filing a lis pendens with the county recorder today. It is a legal notice that tells the world there is a lawsuit pending regarding the property title. It effectively puts a lock on the house. She cannot sell it. She cannot refinance it. She cannot borrow against it. If her plan was to sell the house and run with the cash before you figured this out, that door is now closed. I signed the papers. My signature looked different, sharper, more jagged. One more thing, Jordan said as I stood up. Mara from the hospital called me. She thinks you need to get ahead of the crazy daughter narrative at work. Monica is going to try to ruin you professionally if she cannot control you personally. I nodded. I went straight from Jordan's office to the hospital. I sat down with HR and the head of security. I wrote a detailed incident report, attaching the police report number Jordan had generated. I laid it all out. The financial coercion, the physical assault, the lockout. I am concerned that Mrs. Mercer may attempt to contact the hospital or file false complaints to discredit me. I wrote, I am requesting that she be blocked from the premises and that any communication regarding my employment be directed to my legal counsel. Handing that paper to the HR director felt like erecting a steel wall around my life. For years, I had been terrified that my family drama would leak into my work. Now, I was the one opening the gate, but on my terms. By the time I got back to my apartment, the sun was setting. The sky was a bruised purple, matching my cheek. My phone buzzed. It was Naomi. Hey. She texted. So, a reporter from the Aurora Sentinel just DM'd me. They saw the video in the group. They want to do a story on the dark side of the holidays. They want to know if they can use a clip. I stared at the screen. This was the nuclear option. If this went to the press, there was no going back. The name Mercer would be mud in this town. I do not want my face shown, I typed back, and I do not want my name used yet. But if they blur me out, yes, let them use it. Done, Naomi replied. She said she wants to focus on how perfect families hide abuse. It is going to be big. Caroline. I put the phone down and went to the window. I looked out at the streetlights flickering on. I felt exposed, but also strangely armored. I had lawyers. I had evidence. I had the truth. Then, my phone rang. The screen lit up with a photo of my father holding a fish he caught 10 years ago. Back when he still smiled with his eyes. Dad calling. My heart hammered against my ribs. I let it ring 3 times. The old instinct to answer immediately, to soothe him, to fix it, clawed at my throat. Pick up, tell him it is okay. Tell him you will drop the lawsuit. I took a deep breath and swiped answer. Hello? Caroline? His voice was unrecognizable. It was high and thin, trembling with a panic I had never heard before. Caroline, honey, are you there? I am here, Greg, I said. I did not call him Dad. We just got served, he stammered. A sheriff's deputy was just here. He gave Monica a paper. It says she cannot come within 500 feet of you. It says, Caroline, it says you are suing us for the house? I am not suing you for the house, Greg, I said calmly. I am petitioning for the partition of sale to claim the assets that have legally belonged to me since I was 25. The assets you stole. Stole? He choked on the word. Carrie, no, we did not steal. We were protecting it. We were holding it for you until you were ready. You know how you are with money. You have always been overwhelmed. I am overwhelmed because I have been supporting 2 households on a single income for 3 years. I cut in. I am overwhelmed because I paid $1,200 for a roof repair on a house I own but was not allowed to sleep in. Monica is screaming, he whispered, and I could hear the chaos in the background, the sound of breaking glass, the muffled shrieking that used to make my stomach turn. Now, it just sounded like noise. She says she is going to call the mayor. She says she's going to ruin you. Caroline, please, you have to stop this. Just come over. We can sit down. We can work this out. Do not drag this into court. Do not shame us like this. I am not coming over, I said. If I come over, Monica goes to jail for violating the restraining order. Is that what you want? Then drop it, he pleaded. Just drop the order. We will give you some money. We can figure out a payment plan for the house share. Just do not make this public. The foundation. If the donors find out. They already know, I said. My lawyer mailed the letters this afternoon. There was a silence on the other end of the line, so profound, it felt like the line had gone dead. Then, a small, broken sound, a sob. "Why are you doing this?" he asked. "We are your family." "No," I said. "Family does not lock you out in the snow. Family does not steal your inheritance. Family does not watch you get hit and do nothing." I was scared, he admitted. It was the first honest thing he had said in a decade. She gets so angry. Caroline, you do not have to live with her. I do." "That is your choice," I said. "You chose her. Every single day. You chose her over me. And now, I am choosing myself." "What do you want?" he asked, his voice defeated. "Just tell me what you want." I looked around my empty, cold apartment. I thought about the warmth of the house on Elm Street, the house my mother bought, the house where I had scrubbed floors and cooked roasts and been treated like a trespasser. "I want to be safe," I said, my voice steady and hard as granite. "I want my mother's legacy to be respected, and I want to ensure that I am never, ever locked out of my own home again." "Caroline." "Talk to my lawyer, Greg." I hung up. My hand was shaking, but not from fear. It was the adrenaline of finally severing the limb to save the body. I sat down on the floor and pulled the blanket around me. My phone buzzed again. It was Jordan. "Update on the Lias Pendens," the text read. "The clerk just filed it. The house is locked down. Monica called her real estate agent 20 minutes ago to try and list it for a quick cash sale. The agent saw the flag in the system and told her no. She is trapped." I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. She was trapped, for years. I had been the one trapped in the basement, trapped in the debt, trapped in the guilt. Now the walls were closing in on her. She was sitting in that beautiful, expensive house, surrounded by the organic mushrooms she had screamed for, realizing that the ungrateful daughter held the only key that mattered. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in days, I did not see the door slamming in my face. I saw it swinging open, and I was the one holding the handle. The conference room of the Bright Horizons Foundation was located on the top floor of a glass-paneled building in downtown Aurora, a space designed to intimidate. The table was a slab of polished mahogany that stretched for 20 feet, surrounded by ergonomic leather chairs that cost more than my entire nursing school tuition. In the center of the table, a crystal vase held an arrangement of winter lilies. The same white lilies Monica always insisted I buy for the house because they symbolized purity. I sat on one side of the table, flanked by Jordan on my left and Naomi on my right. My hands were folded in my lap, gripping each other so tightly that my knuckles had turned the color of old parchment. Across from us sat the board of directors, 6 men and women who controlled the funding that kept Monica's social status afloat. They looked uncomfortable. They were used to gala dinners and silent auctions, not emergency meetings regarding the conduct of their CEO. At 10 o'clock exactly, the double doors swung open. Monica entered. She had clearly spent hours preparing for this. She was wearing a tailored charcoal suit that projected authority, and her makeup was applied with surgical precision, heavy enough to cover any signs of stress, but soft enough to suggest vulnerability. She did not look at me. She walked straight to the head of the table, placed her leather portfolio down, and looked at the board with glistening eyes. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," she began, her voice trembling just the right amount. "I know the rumors have been distressing. It breaks my heart that a private family crisis has spilled over into the work we do here, but I think it is important that you hear the truth from a mother, not from a Facebook comment section." She took a deep breath, pressing a hand to her chest. "Caroline," she said, gesturing vaguely in my direction without making eye contact, "has been struggling with severe mental health issues for years. The pressure of working in the ER, combined with the unresolved trauma of losing her biological mother, has created a state of instability. What you saw in that video was a snapshot of a psychotic break. We had to lock the door to protect ourselves. We were terrified she had a weapon. I have been trying to get her into a facility for months, but the system is broken." She paused, wiping a non-existent tear, I am the victim here, she whispered. But I forgive her, because that is what mothers do. The room was silent. A few board members nodded sympathetically. One of them, a woman named Mrs. Higgins, who had known my father for years, looked at me with pity. Monica was winning. She was doing what she always did, spinning the narrative until the truth was just a blur in the rearview mirror. Jordan cleared his throat. The sound was sharp, like a gavel striking wood. Mrs. Mercer, Jordan said, his voice calm and leveled. That is a very moving story. However, we are not here to discuss my client's medical history, which is pristine. By the way, we are here to discuss the 47 seconds of footage that contradicts every word you just said. That video was edited, Monica snapped, her mask slipping for a fraction of a second. It was manipulated to make me look bad. Actually, Naomi spoke up, sliding her phone forward. I took the video. I am a digital content professional. I have the raw file metadata here. It has not been altered, cropped, or filtered. And unlike the version on Facebook, this one has the audio enhanced. Jordan connected his laptop to the large screen at the end of the room. I think we should watch it together. The full version. Monica stood up. I will not sit here and be humiliated by— Sit down, Monica, said Mr. Sterling, the foundation's largest donor. He was a man of few words, a billionaire who had made his fortune in logistics. He did not look at her kindly. I want to see the video. Monica sat, her face paling. Jordan pressed play. On the massive screen, the scene played out in high definition, the snow, the darkness, me, standing shivering in my scrubs, and Monica, framed in the doorway. You are a danger to this family. The scream echoed in the acoustic perfection of the boardroom. It was shrill and hateful. Then, the shove. We watched in slow motion as Monica's hands made contact with my chest, pushing me backward onto the ice. Then, the silence of my father standing behind her, doing nothing. Then, the moment that sucked the air out of the room, Monica looked directly at me, shivering on the ground, and screamed, "Get out of my house!" It was not the voice of a terrified victim protecting her family from a weapon. It was the voice of a tyrant dismissing a servant. The video ended. The screen went black, but the echo of her scream seemed to linger in the air. Mr. Sterling turned his chair slowly to face Monica. You said you were terrified, he said, his voice low. You said she had a weapon in that video. I see a young woman holding a bag of groceries. I see her asking for her car keys. And I see you, Monica, attacking her. She was threatening me before the camera started, Monica cried, her hands shaking as she gripped the table. You do not know what she said. Actually, Naomi interrupted again, I have more. She tapped her tablet. A series of shorter clips appeared on the screen. I have lived across the street for 3 years, Naomi said. I work from home. My desk faces your driveway. I started noticing things a long time ago. The first clip played. It was from last winter. A blizzard was raging. I was visible in the driveway, shoveling heavy snow off 2 luxury SUVs. I was struggling, slipping on the ice. The camera zoomed into the living room window of the Mercer house. Monica and Sophie were sitting by the fire, holding mugs, watching me work like I was hired help. The second clip was an Instagram story. It was clearly screen-recorded from Sophie's account. It showed the aftermath of a foundation dinner party at the house. The caption read, "Best night ever. So much fun." The camera panned around the empty living room, then accidentally caught the kitchen in the background. I was there, hunched over a sink full of dishes, wearing a stained apron, looking exhausted. Monica walked past me in the frame, snapping her fingers and pointing at a spill on the floor. These are not snapshots of a beloved daughter, Naomi said, her voice cutting. These are evidence of an indentured servant. Mrs. Higgins, the board member who had looked sympathetic earlier, turned to Monica. Her face was hard. Monica, she said, you posted a photo of that dinner. You wrote a caption about how blessed you were to have a daughter who loved to cook. You told me personally that Caroline begged to make the meal as a gift to the foundation. She did, Monica lied, but her voice was thin. She loves to help. I hate cooking, I said. It was the first time I had spoken. My voice shook slightly, but it gained strength as I continued. I looked directly at Mrs. Higgins. I work 60 hours a week saving lives. The last thing I want to do on my day off is cook a 7-course meal for 20 people. I did it because Monica told me that if I did not, I would be evicted. I reached into my bag and pulled out the binder Jordan and I had prepared. It was heavy. It landed on the mahogany table with a solid thud. You talk about the foundation protecting the vulnerable, I said to the room. You talk about financial transparency. I think you should see where some of your overhead costs have actually been going. I opened the binder to the spreadsheet. 3 years ago, the foundation hosted a gala at our house, I said, pointing to a line item. The budget lists $5,000 for catering services. I cooked that meal. I bought the groceries with my own money. I never saw a check. So where did that $5,000 go? Mr. Sterling leaned forward, pulling the binder toward him. He ran his finger down the column. Here is another one, I said. $2,000 for event staging last Christmas. That money was used to buy new furniture for Monica's bedroom. I have the delivery receipt here, matched with the date of the withdrawal from the foundation account. The silence in the room was now absolute. It was the silence of a structure collapsing. This was no longer just about a mean stepmother. This was about embezzlement. This was about fraud. Monica stood up, her chair crashing backward. This is absurd. I am the CEO. I have discretion over operational costs. This girl is lying. She is trying to destroy me because she is jealous of Sophie. She has always been jealous. Sit down. Monica, Mr. Sterling roared. He stood up, his face red with anger. I have donated $500,000 to this organization. I gave that money to help battered women and children. And now I find out that the woman running it is battering her own stepdaughter and using my money to redecorate her master suite? It was for the image of the foundation, Monica shrieked, desperate now. We have to look successful to attract donors. Greg agreed. Greg said it was fine. The room froze. Greg? Jordan asked. You are saying your husband, who is the treasurer of the foundation, authorized these personal expenses? Monica's eyes went wide. She realized too late what she had done. In her panic to save herself, to justify her actions, she had just implicated the only person who had stood by her. He signed the checks, Monica stammered, looking around the room for an ally, finding none. He knew. He said it was the only way to keep the house running. He said Caroline owed us. So he was complicit, Jordan said, making a note on his legal pad. Thank you. That will be very useful for the forensic accountant. Mr. Sterling closed the binder. He looked at the other board members. They exchanged a single, grim look. The consensus was immediate. Monica, Mr. Sterling said, his voice cold and final. You are effectively suspended from your position as CEO. Pending a full external audit, your access to the foundation accounts is revoked as of this second. Security will escort you to your office to collect your personal effects, and only your personal effects. You cannot do this to me, Monica screamed. The mask was gone completely now. Her face was twisted, ugly with entitlement. I built this foundation. I am Bright Horizons. You are nothing without me. Right now, Mrs. Higgins said, standing up, you are a liability, and frankly, Monica, after seeing that video, you disgust me. And as for the funding, Mr. Sterling added, looking at the rest of the table, my checkbook is closed until she is gone, permanently, and if I find out 1 cent of my money went to paying for that house she locked that girl out of, I will sue her personally for every dime. Monica looked at them. She looked at me. For a second, I thought she might lunge across the table. Her hands were clawed, her breathing ragged. She looked at me with a hatred so pure it felt like a physical burn. You ungrateful little snake, she hissed. I gave you everything. You took everything, I said, and now I am taking it back. 2 security guards entered the room. They did not ask her nicely. They stood on either side of her. Mrs. Mercer, one of them said, please come with us. Monica tried to straighten her jacket. She tried to regain some shred of dignity. She threw her head back, glared at the room, and turned to walk out. But as she reached the door, her heel caught on the carpet, and she stumbled. She didn't fall, but the stumble broke the image. She wasn't a queen leaving her court. She was a criminal being escorted out. The door closed behind her. The room let out a collective breath. Mr. Sterling turned to me. He looked at the bruise on my face, which I had not bothered to cover with makeup today.
Miss Mercer, he said softly, I cannot apologize enough. We had no idea.
I know, I said. She is very good at what she does. We will cooperate fully with your lawyer regarding the house and the investigation, he said. And if you need anything at all. I just want the truth on the record, I said. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I forced them to hold me. I walked out of that conference room, flanked by Jordan and Naomi. We walked down the long hallway, past the office where Monica was currently having her corporate credit card cut in half by a security guard. I could hear her muffled shouting through the glass walls. Do you know who I am? I am the victim here. Greg, answer your phone, you coward. I didn't stop. I didn't look. We stepped into the elevator. The doors slid shut, sealing out the noise of her self-destruction. Naomi looked at me and grinned. That, she said, was better than the video. Jordan checked his watch. The temporary restraining order was granted an hour ago. The lis pendens is filed. And now, she is jobless. Not a bad morning. Caroline. I leaned back against the cool metal wall of the elevator. I felt exhausted, drained, and empty. But it was a clean emptiness. It was the emptiness of a room that had finally been cleared of hoarding and rot. It is not over yet, I said. She still has the house. Not for long, Jordan said as the elevator dinged for the lobby. She just threw her co-conspirator under the bus on public record. Greg is going to have to choose between going down with her for embezzlement or flipping on her to save himself. And we all know Greg is a survivor. I walked out into the cold winter sunlight of Aurora. The air was crisp. I took a deep breath. For the first time in 3 years, the air didn't taste like anxiety. It tasted like justice. The coffee shop was a small, independent place on the edge of town, far enough from the gossip circles of the Aurora Lakes community that we could sit without being photographed. It was 2 days before the hearing. The sky was a slate gray, threatening more snow, mirroring the tension that had settled permanently in my gut. I arrived 10 minutes early, sitting with my back to the wall, watching the door. When Greg walked in, I almost did not recognize him. My father had always been a man who prioritized appearance. He dyed his hair to hide the gray. He wore ironed shirts even on weekends. But the man who shuffled through the door looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 days. His shoulders were slumped, his coat was unbuttoned, and there was a frantic, hollow look in his eyes. He looked like a man who had been living in a war zone. He saw me and hesitated. I did not stand up. I did not smile. I just nodded at the empty chair opposite me. He sat down heavily. He did not order a coffee. He just put his hands on the table, clasping them together to stop them from shaking. She does not know I am here, he said. His voice was rough, like he had been shouting or crying, or both. If she knew, she would burn the house down. She cannot burn the house down. Greg, I said, my voice steady. There is a court order preventing her from damaging the asset, and she is currently under investigation for embezzlement. I do not think she wants to add arson to the list. He flinched at the legal terminology. Carrie, please, can we talk like father and daughter? Just for 5 minutes? We are talking, I said, but the father I knew would not have watched his wife throw me into a snowbank. So, tell me why you are here. He looked down at his hands. I came to give you something, and to tell you I am sorry, not for the fight, but for everything before it. He took a deep breath, and the story started to spill out of him. It was a pathetic, human confession. He told me about the days after my mother died. He told me about the crushing silence of the house, the fear of growing old alone, the way the bills piled up on the counter because he did not know how to log into the bank accounts. "I was so tired. Caroline," he whispered. "I was just so tired." And then Monica came along. She was so full of life. She took the papers out of my hands. She said, "Greg, let me handle the boring stuff. You just grieve." I thought she was saving me. "So you let her spend the insurance money," I said. $300,000, Mom's money. "She said it was an investment," he said, pleading with his eyes. "She said buying the house cash would secure our future. She put the papers in front of me, and I signed them. I did not read them. I just wanted the noise to stop." "And the email?" I asked. "The one where you told the lawyers I was unstable and waived my rights?" He closed his eyes. "She wrote it. She told me that if you got that money when you turned 25, you would leave. She said you would take your share and move back to Phoenix, and we would lose the house because we could not afford to buy you out. She said we had to protect the family unit." "You mean protect your comfort," I said coldly. "I was a coward," he admitted. Tears were leaking out of his eyes now, tracking through the stubble on his cheeks. "I saw how she treated you, the cooking, the cleaning, the checks you wrote us. I saw it, and I looked away because it was easier than fighting her. She is... Caroline, she is terrifying when she is crossed. You do not live with her. You do not know." "I know enough," I said. He reached into his pocket. For a second, my muscles tensed, expecting a weapon or a subpoena, but he pulled out a small, silver USB drive. It looked old, the casing scratched. "What is this?" I asked. "I installed security cameras in the study 5 years ago," he said. "Monica made me take them down after a week because she said they were intrusive, but the system archived the footage. I kept this drive. I do not know why. Maybe part of me knew I would need it someday. Insurance." He slid it across the table. "There is a file on there from November 12th, 4 years ago," he said. "The day your inheritance was supposed to transfer. Watch it." He stood up. He looked at me one last time, and I saw a flicker of the dad who used to teach me to fish, buried under layers of weakness and compromise. "You win, Caroline," he said softly. "You deserve to win. I hope someday, when this is over, you can look at me without seeing a monster." "I do not see a monster, Greg," I said. "I see a landlord who finally realized his tenant has rights." He winced, turned, and walked out into the gray afternoon. I went straight to Jordan's office. Jordan plugged the USB into his laptop. We found the file dated November 12th. He clicked play. The video was grainy, black and white, shot from a high angle in the corner of the study. It showed Greg sitting at his desk, looking head in his hands. Monica walked in. She was holding a thick, cream-colored envelope. I recognized the logo of the law firm. On the screen, Monica ripped the envelope open. She pulled out the documents, the notification of my partial ownership, the transfer forms, the check request. "Look at this," Monica's voice came through the speakers, tinny but clear. "They want to give her 30%, 30% of my house. It is her mother's money." "Monica," Greg said on the video. His voice sounded weak. "It is our money now," Monica snapped. She walked over to the fireplace. A gas fire was burning. "Does she know about this date? Did she say anything?" "No," Greg said. "She thinks the probate is still tied up in taxes." "Good," Monica said. And then, with a smile that chilled my blood, she tore the documents in half. Then in quarters, she tossed the pieces into the fire. She watched them curl and blacken. "She does not need to know," Monica said, dusting off her hands. "She is happy playing nurse. Why burden her with property taxes? We will just tell the lawyers she is having a mental breakdown and cannot sign. I will write the email. You just forward it." She laughed then. It was a light, dismissive laugh. "Besides, she owes us. For all the food she eats. Jordan paused the video. He leaned back in his chair, a slow, predatory smile spreading across his face. Bingo, he said. Is it enough? I asked, staring at the frozen image of the burning paper. Caroline, Jordan said. This takes us from civil dispute to criminal intent. This is not just, oops, we forgot to tell her. This is deliberate destruction of legal documents. This is conspiracy to commit fraud. This is the smoking gun that proves she didn't just mistreat you. She systematically robbed you with malice. He tapped the screen. With this, the judge will not just give you your share. He might give you the whole damn house as punitive damages. And Monica? She is looking at potential jail time. I felt a strange sensation in my chest. It wasn't happiness. It was the feeling of a heavy weight finally sliding off my lungs. For years, she had made me feel crazy. She had made me feel like I was imagining the cruelty. This video proved I wasn't crazy. I was just the target of a very long, very expensive con. That night, back in my apartment, the second blow to Monica's empire arrived in the form of a vibrating phone on my mattress. It was midnight. The screen lit up. Sophie. I hesitated. Sophie had blocked me on social media the day the first video came out. She had posted a series of crying emojis calling me a traitor and a homewrecker. I opened the message. It was a wall of text. Caroline, I know it is late. I know you probably hate me. I do not blame you. I sat up, pulling the blanket around my shoulders. I saw the video Naomi posted. The second one. The one with the clips of you cleaning while I was sitting there. I have been watching it for 2 days. I tried to tell myself it was fake, but I remember that night. I remember Mom telling me, do not help her. Sophie. She likes doing it. It is how she earns her keep. I went to see a therapist yesterday, for the first time, because I realized something terrifying. Mom has been telling me my whole life that you were the leech, that you were the one draining Dad's money, that you were the reason we could not go on bigger vacations. She made me resent you so I would not feel bad about you living in the basement. But she lied to me too. I found out yesterday that she took out a credit card in my name 3 years ago. It has a $20,000 balance. She told me it was for my branding, but the statements are all for her spa treatments and clothes. I am scared. Caroline, I am scared because I realize that if she could do that to you, and do that to me, she does not love any of us. She just loves the lifestyle. I moved out tonight. I am staying with a friend. I told Jordan Hale I am willing to testify. I will tell the judge about the chores. I will tell them about the threats. I will tell them how she forced you to pay for my tuition and told me it was a scholarship from the foundation. I do not expect you to forgive me. I was a brat. I was blind. But I want you to know I am sorry, and I hope, maybe in a long time, we can be sisters again, because right now, you are the only real family I have left. I put the phone down. Tears pricked my eyes. Hot, stinging tears. I thought about Sophie, the golden child, the princess. I had resented her for so long. But reading her message, I realized she was just another victim. Monica had used me for labor and money, but she had used Sophie as a prop. She had hollowed us both out in different ways. I forwarded the text to Jordan. Add this to the file, I typed. Jordan replied instantly, even though it was 1 a.m. This is the nail in the coffin. Sophie's testimony destroys the united family defense. Monica is alone. What do I say to her? I asked. Be careful, Jordan advised. You can accept her help, but protect your heart. She is waking up, but she is still Greg and Monica's daughter. Patterns take a long time to break. Tell her thank you. Tell her you appreciate the truth, but do not promise her a relationship yet. Thaw is a decision for future Caroline, not plaintiff Caroline. I took his advice. I wrote back, thank you. Sophie, being brave enough to speak the truth matters more than you know. We will talk when the dust settles. Be safe. The next day was the day before the hearing. I did not go to work. I took a personal day. I spent it in my apartment, turning my small living space into a war room. I covered the cheap laminate table with papers, the will, the spreadsheet of expenses totaling $18,000, the screenshots of the abusive texts, the USB drive, the affidavit from Sophie. I looked at the pile. It was a mountain of evidence. It was irrefutable. For 3 years, I had walked on eggshells. I had made myself small. I had apologized for existing. I had believed that if I just worked harder, cooked better, paid more, they would finally love me. I looked at the video still of Monica burning the papers. They were never going to love me. That was the hard truth I had to swallow. They were parasites, and I had been the host. But the host was waking up. I poured myself a glass of water and sat down with a notepad. I needed to write something, not for the court, not for Jordan, for me. I picked up a pen. My hand was steady. Tomorrow, I wrote, I am not walking into that courtroom to ask for their permission to exist. I am not going there to beg for a profound apology or a hug from my father. I am going there to clarify the record. I was never a guest in that house. I was never a charity case. I was the owner. I was the financier. I was the spine that held them upright. They locked the door on me, but they forgot whose name was on the deed. Tomorrow, I am not asking to be let back in. I am serving an eviction notice. I tore the page out of the notebook and taped it to the wall above my mattress. It was a manifesto of one. Outside, the snow had started to fall again, blanketing Aurora in white. But this time, I wasn't standing in it without a coat. I was inside. I was warm, and I was ready. I turned off the light, leaving the street lamp to cast a long, rectangular shadow across the floor. It looked like a door opening. The silence in the apartment was not lonely. It was expectant. It was the deep, pressurized silence before a controlled explosion. And tomorrow, I was going to push the button. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. It was room 304 of the Arapahoe County Justice Center, a space with beige walls, fluorescent lighting that hummed with a low-grade headache, and rows of wooden benches that smelled of lemon polish and anxiety. I sat on the plaintiff's side, next to Jordan. My hands were folded on the table, resting on top of the thick binder of evidence we had compiled. Across the aisle, Monica sat with her lawyer, a man in a pinstripe suit who looked expensive and bored. Monica was dressed for the role of the grieving matriarch. She wore a modest navy skirt suit, a string of pearls, and her hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant chignon. She looked composed, dignified, and completely out of place in a room usually reserved for traffic violations and petty disputes. Greg sat behind her, but not too close. He looked like a man made of papier-mâché that had been left out in the rain, gray, slumped, and dissolving. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Holloway entered. She was a woman in her 60s with reading glasses perched on the end of her nose and a demeanor that suggested she had zero patience for theatrics. Monica's lawyer, Mr. Vance, stood up first. He buttoned his jacket and gave the judge a practiced smile. "Your Honor," he began, his voice smooth as oil. "We are here today because of a tragic misunderstanding. My client, Mrs. Mercer, has been the victim of a smear campaign orchestrated by a troubled young woman. The petitioner, Caroline, has a documented history of high stress due to her job in emergency services. We have affidavits suggesting she has been suffering from depression and mood swings since the death of her biological mother. The video that has been circulated was heavily edited and taken out of context to paint a false narrative of abuse, when in reality, Mrs. Mercer was simply trying to protect herself from a manic episode." I felt my blood heat up, but Jordan placed a hand on my arm, grounding me. "Your turn," Jordan whispered when Vance sat down. Jordan stood up. He did not smile. He did not use flowery language. "Your Honor," Jordan said, "we are not here to discuss my client's mental health, which is excellent. We are here to discuss facts. And the facts are that on the night of December 23rd, Monica Mercer physically assaulted my client and locked her out of her own home in freezing temperatures. We would like to submit Exhibit A, the raw, unedited video file with original metadata and audio enhancement." The screen on the wall flickered to life. Once again, the scene played out, the scream. "You are a danger to this family."
the shove, the slam, the click of the lock. The courtroom was silent, save for the audio of the wind howling on the video.
And Jordan continued, to address the defense's claim that this was an isolated incident or a misunderstanding, we would like to submit Exhibit B. This is security footage from the defendant's home office, dated 4 years ago.
Monica froze.
She turned her head sharply toward Greg. He did not look at her. He was staring at his shoes. The black and white video played. It showed the study. It showed Monica ripping open the envelope from the estate lawyers. It showed her reading the terms of my inheritance. And then, it showed her tossing the papers into the fireplace, laughing as they burned, and telling Greg that I didn't need to know because I owed them for the food I ate. A gasp went through the small gallery. Even the bailiff looked up, eyebrows raised. Judge Holloway took off her glasses. She looked at Monica. The look was not kind. Mr. Vance, the judge said, her voice dry, does your client have an explanation for destroying legal documents regarding the petitioner's property rights? Vance looked at Monica. He clearly hadn't known about this video. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. We would need to verify the authenticity of that tape, Your Honor, he stammered.
I can verify it, a voice said from the back of the room. The heavy double doors opened. Sophie walked in.
She looked young and terrified, clutching her purse with both hands. She wasn't wearing her usual influencer makeup. She looked pale and real. Monica gasped. Sophie? Sophie walked to the witness stand. She swore in, her voice trembling.
Miss Mercer, Jordan asked gently, can you tell the court what the living arrangements were like in the Mercer household?
Sophie took a deep breath. She didn't look at her mother.
Caroline did everything, Sophie said. Mom, my mother, she made Caroline cook every meal for the parties. She made her shovel the snow. She made her clean the bathrooms before guests came over. And she always told me, do not help her. She needs to earn her keep.
Did your mother ever threaten Caroline? Jordan asked.
Yes,
Sophie whispered. Tears started to slide down her face. She used to say that if Caroline didn't pay for my tuition or fix the roof, she would kick us both out. She said Caroline was a leech. But I saw the bank statements. Caroline paid for everything. My mother hasn't spent a dime of her own money in years.
Traitor, Monica screamed.
She stood up, slamming her hands on the table. You ungrateful, spoiled little brat. I gave you everything. I made you who you are. Sit down. Mrs. Mercer, the judge barked, banging her gavel. One more outburst and I will hold you in contempt. Monica sank back into her chair, her chest heaving. She looked at Sophie with eyes full of venom. She had lost her daughter, and she knew it.
I have no further questions, Jordan said.
Then, he called Greg to the stand. My father walked up slowly. He looked older than his 58 years. He sat down and looked at me. His eyes were wet. Mr. Mercer, Jordan asked, you appear in the video of the lockout. You are standing right behind your wife. Why didn't you open the door? Greg looked at his hands. The silence stretched out for 10 seconds.
Because I was a coward, he said. His voice was cracked and raw.
Objection, Vance said weakly. Relevance? Overruled, the judge said. Let him speak.
I saw what she did, Greg said, his voice gaining strength.
I saw her hit Caroline. I saw her throw the bags, and I stood there because for 10 years, I have been more afraid of my wife's anger than I was concerned for my daughter's safety. I let her burn those papers. I let her steal Caroline's money. I let her turn me into a stranger to my own child. He looked at Monica. If that neighbor hadn't posted that video, if the world hadn't seen what I became, I would probably still be standing in that kitchen, letting it happen. I saw that video, and I hated the man I saw. I am done lying for you. Monica. Monica stared at him, her mouth slightly open. Her last defense, her enabler, her shield. He had just dropped his sword. Judge Holloway spent 20 minutes reviewing the documents in silence. The only sound in the room was the ticking of the clock and Monica's ragged breathing. Finally, the judge looked up. In 20 years on the bench, Judge Holloway said, I have seen many dysfunctional families, but rarely have I seen such a calculated, systematic campaign of financial and emotional abuse directed at a family member. She looked at Monica. Mrs. Mercer, the court finds that you have committed acts of domestic violence against the petitioner. The video evidence clearly shows you as the aggressor. Furthermore, the evidence regarding the destruction of the will and the financial exploitation is damning. I am granting a permanent restraining order. You are to have no contact with Caroline Mercer for a period of 5 years. You are to stay 500 yards away from her home and place of employment. The judge turned to the papers regarding the house. Regarding the property on Elm Street, based on the evidence that the home was purchased with funds from the petitioner's mother's estate, and the video evidence of the defendant destroying the transfer documents, I am ordering an immediate partition by sale. The house will be appraised within 14 days. Mrs. Mercer, you will have 30 days to buy out Caroline's share, which includes the backdated equity she was denied, plus the $18,000 in proven coerced payments. If you cannot produce the funds, the house will be sold and the proceeds divided, with punitive damages deducted from your share. I cannot afford that, Monica cried out. I have no income. The foundation suspended me. Then you will move, the judge said simply, and in the interim, I am granting Caroline Mercer the right to enter the property, accompanied by law enforcement, to retrieve her personal belongings. You will vacate the premises during her visit. The gavel came down with a sound like a gunshot. Court is adjourned. I stood up. My legs felt like jelly, but I didn't collapse. I felt Jordan squeeze my shoulder. We did it, he whispered. We walked toward the exit. In the hallway outside the courtroom, the air was cooler. I took a deep breath. Suddenly, the doors behind us burst open. Monica came storming out, her lawyer trailing helplessly behind her. You think you won? She screamed, her face twisted and ugly, the makeup running in streaks. She lunged toward me, her hands clawed. You ruined this family, you jealous, miserable little... 2 court security officers stepped in front of her, blocking her path like a wall of blue uniforms. Ma'am, step back, one of them ordered, his hand on his taser. The restraining order is in effect. Step back now or you will be arrested. Monica stopped. She looked at the guards. She looked at me, standing safe behind them. For the first time, she couldn't touch me. Her power, the screaming, the bullying, the physical intimidation, it evaporated against the reality of the law. She let out a sound of pure frustration, a guttural scream of rage, and then crumpled against the wall, sobbing. It wasn't the fake crying she used to manipulate Greg. It was the real, ugly crying of a narcissist who had finally hit a boundary she couldn't break. I looked at her. I waited for the satisfaction to hit me. I waited to feel happy. But I didn't feel happy. I just felt light. I felt like a backpack full of stones had been cut from my shoulders. Let's go, Jordan, I said. I have a shift tonight. I turned my back on her and walked down the long marble hallway, my heels clicking a rhythm of freedom on the floor. 3 weeks later, the police cruiser sat in the driveway of the house on Elm Street, its lights flashing silently against the snow. I stood on the sidewalk. The house looked the same, the white paint, the black shutters, the manicured hedges, but it felt different. It didn't look like a fortress anymore. It just looked like a building. Jordan handed me a set of keys. The court had a locksmith change them yesterday, he said. She is gone. The movers took her stuff this morning. The appraisal came in high. She couldn't afford the buyout. The for sale sign goes up tomorrow. I took the keys. The metal was cold in my hand. Do you want me to come in with you? Jordan asked. No, I said. I need to do this alone. I walked up the driveway. I passed the spot where the Uber had picked me up that night. I walked up the porch steps. I stopped at the heavy oak door, the same door that had been slammed in my face so many times. I put the key in the lock. It turned smoothly. Click. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The house was quiet. It smelled of floor wax and stale air. The furniture was still there. Monica hadn't been allowed to take the items bought with family money. But the personal clutter was gone. The photos of her and Sophie were gone from the mantelpiece. The expensive vases were gone. I walked into the kitchen. The granite island was bare. I ran my hand over the cold stone. This was where I had chopped vegetables for hours. This was where I had been slapped. This was where I had been told I was a burden. It was just a kitchen. It had no power over me. I walked through the living room, past the fireplace where the will had been burned. It was clean now, swept of ash. I walked to the back door, the door to the patio, the scene of the crime. I opened it and stepped out onto the small porch. The air was crisp and cold. Just like that night, the snow was piled in the yard. Across the street, the garage door of the Brooks house was open. Naomi was standing there, bundled in a coat, drinking coffee. She saw me. She didn't shout. She didn't come over. She just raised her coffee mug in a silent toast. I smiled and nodded back, a silent thank you to the stranger who had saved my life with 47 seconds of courage. I turned back to the house. I stepped inside. I looked around the empty space one last time. I wasn't going to live here. I was going to sell it. I was going to take my share of the money, my mother's money, and I was going to buy a real home. A place where I was the only one with a key. A place where the food in the fridge was mine, and the silence was peaceful, not heavy. I put my hand on the doorknob. I remembered the sound that had haunted me for weeks, the sound of being shut out, the sound of rejection. I pulled the door closed. Click. The sound echoed through the empty hallway, but this time, I was on the inside. I was the one turning the lock. I was the one deciding who got to come in and who had to stay out. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. Thank you so much for listening to this story on Lila Revenge Stories. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. Are you listening while cooking dinner, driving to work, or maybe relaxing before bed? Let me know in the comments below, and please do not forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and hit that hype button so we can share these powerful stories with even more people. My apartment was a box of silence on the second floor of a complex that smelled perpetually of curry and stale cigarette smoke. It was only 400 square feet. A temporary lifeboat I had rented 3 months ago when the suffocating pressure of my father's house became too much to bear. I had no furniture yet, just a twin mattress on the floor, a single lamp, and a box of books I had managed to smuggle out a week ago. I sat on the mattress, still in my coat, my knees pulled up to my chest. The heating unit rattled in the corner, blowing lukewarm air that did little to chase away the chill settling in my bones. My cheek was throbbing with a dull, rhythmic ache where Monica's ring had caught the skin. I had checked it in the bathroom mirror. A purple bruise was blooming like a storm cloud across my cheekbone. My phone buzzed on the floor beside me. I stared at it. I did not want to touch it. I assumed it was Greg, finally texting to say I'm sorry or come back. She didn't mean it. Or maybe it was Monica, telling me I was forbidden from attending the Christmas party I had spent 3 weeks prepping for. But the screen lit up with a number I did not save, but recognized. It was a local area code. Hi, Caroline. This is Naomi Brooks from across the street. I hope you are okay. I saw what happened. I have a video of Monica locking you out. If you need it for the police or anything, let me know. It is pretty clear what happened. My stomach dropped. The nausea was instant. A video. Panic, irrational and sharp, spiked in my chest. My first instinct was not relief. It was protection, not for myself, but for them. The conditioning of a decade kicked in. The rule that said the Mercer family problems stayed behind the heavy oak door. We did not air our dirty laundry. We did not let the neighbors see the cracks. If this video got out, it would ruin everything. Dad would be humiliated. Monica would go nuclear. I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling. Please do not show that to anyone, I typed back, my thumbs slipping on the glass. Please just delete it. It was a misunderstanding. I do not want any trouble. A moment later, a bubble appeared. Then a video file loaded. I am not going to do anything you do not want, Naomi wrote, but I think you should watch it before you decide to delete it. You need to see what I saw." I hesitated. The play button sat there, a white triangle in the center of the dark thumbnail. I took a breath that shuddered in my lungs and pressed it. The video was shaky at first, the camera adjusting to the low light. Then, the focus sharpened. The audio was terrifyingly crisp in the winter air. "You are a danger to this family." Monica's voice was not the melodic soprano she used at fundraising galas. It was a guttural screech. I saw myself on the screen, small, huddled in my oversized coat and scrubs, backing away with my hands raised. I looked pathetic. I looked like a frightened animal. Then I saw the shove. It was violent. She threw her weight into it, pushing me off the threshold. I saw myself stumble, almost slipping on the ice. But what made the breath catch in my throat was the figure in the background. Greg, my father. I had told myself in the car ride over that he was just shocked, that he was paralyzed by the speed of the argument, but the video told a different story. He was standing right there, safe in the warmth of the hallway. He watched Monica throw the bag of groceries. He watched her scream lies about me attacking her. He did not flinch. He did not step forward. He just looked down at his feet, as if he were waiting for a storm to pass so he could go back to watching television. He looked bored. Then the door slammed. The sound on the video was final. Click. I watched myself standing there for a few seconds, talking to the closed wood. "Dad? Dad, please." The video ended. I lowered the phone. I felt sick. It was one thing to experience the rejection. It was another to see it from the outside. I wasn't a daughter having a fight with her parents. I was a victim being discarded by an abuser and her enabler. My phone buzzed again. Naomi. "I know you want to protect them," she wrote. "I get it. But Caroline, that woman is dangerous. I will keep this on my phone for now. I will not post it. But I have to be honest with you. If she tries to spin this, if she goes on her Saint Monica tour on social media tomorrow while you are sitting there with a black eye, I cannot promise I will stay quiet. Bullying only works in the dark." I did not reply. I turned off the lamp and lay down in the dark. The image of my father's turned back burned into my retinas. I slept fitfully, waking up every hour to the phantom sound of a door slamming. When the sun finally crawled through the blinds, it was Christmas Eve morning. I reached for my phone, a habit I couldn't break. I opened Instagram. And there it was, the first post on my feed. Monica had posted a photo 30 minutes ago. It was a picture of the dining room table. The table I had set. The centerpiece I had arranged with the holly I cut from the frozen bushes in the backyard. The crystal glasses I had hand-washed because the dishwasher left spots. The lighting was warm and golden. It looked like a spread in a lifestyle magazine. The caption read, "Nothing brings me more joy than a home filled with love and tradition. The table is set. The heart is full. So grateful to God for blessing me with such filial children who understand the true meaning of family. Merry Christmas from the Mercers." She had tagged Sophie. She had tagged Dad. She had even tagged the Bright Horizons Foundation. She did not tag me. Filial children. The rage that hit me was cold and hard. It wasn't the hot, tearful anger of last night. It was the clarity of a judge passing a sentence. She had kicked me out into the snow, bruised my face, and now she was using my labor to sell her image of the perfect mother. A notification slid down from the top of my screen. It was a text from Naomi. She must have seen the post, too. "Are you seeing this?" Naomi asked. "Filial children? After she locked you out in a blizzard?" I stared at the screen. I thought about the restraining order I should file. I thought about the years of unpaid bills. I thought about the $7 in my bank account. "Do what you have to do," I typed. I hit send before I could panic. Then I put the phone on silent, face down on the mattress, and went to take a shower. I needed to wash the feeling of that house off my skin. While I was standing under the hot spray, scrubbing my skin until it was raw, the digital world in the Aurora Lakes community was beginning to catch fire. Naomi didn't waste time. She didn't write a long, hateful rant. She didn't call Monica names. She simply uploaded the 47-second clip to the neighborhood Facebook group. which had over 4,000 members. Her caption was lethal in its neutrality. I usually mind my own business, but I witnessed this last night across the street, and I did not sleep well. If you think this is normal behavior for a warm, loving family on Christmas Eve, please let me know. Because to me, locking a nurse out in the snow after she just got off a shift looks a lot like abuse. I came out of the shower 20 minutes later and dried my hair. I felt lighter, strangely detached. I picked up my phone. There were 50 notifications. I opened Facebook. The post had been up for 40 minutes. It had 120 comments. I started reading, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Oh my God," wrote a woman named Sarah Jenkins. "Is that the Mercer house? The big white one on Elm Street?" "I can't watch this," another comment read. "The sound of that slap. That poor girl. She is wearing scrubs. She literally just came from the hospital." "Wait a minute," a user named Mike T posted. "I know that woman. That is Monica Mercer. She runs the Bright Horizons Foundation. I just saw her on the news last week, accepting a check for at-risk youth. Is this how she treats the youth in her own house?" The connection had been made. The spark had hit the gasoline. "I live 2 streets over," commented a user named Linda. "I always see that girl, the daughter, shoveling the driveway by herself while the rest of them are inside. I always thought it was weird. But this is criminal." "Look at the dad," someone else pointed out. "He is just standing there. What a coward. Man up, Greg." The video was being shared. People were tagging their friends. But more dangerously for Monica, they were tagging the organizations she was associated with. At Bright Horizons Foundation. "You might want to see this," a woman named Jessica wrote. "This is your CEO screaming at a healthcare worker and throwing her groceries in the snow. Is this the compassion you preach?" "My company donates $5,000 a year to this foundation," wrote a man who identified himself as a local business owner. "I will be making a phone call on Monday. This is disgusting." I sat on my mattress, scrolling, unable to look away, for years. Monica had controlled the narrative. She was the saint. I was the mess. She was the charitable socialite. I was the sullen stepdaughter. But the camera didn't lie. The camera stripped away the context she always manipulated and left only the raw, ugly action. An hour later, the post had crossed 500 comments. The group administrators had turned off post approval because so many people were trying to start new threads about it. Then, Monica responded. It appeared in the comment section, a long block of text that reeked of panic and PR spin. "Dear neighbors," Monica wrote from her personal account, "I am heartbroken that a private family moment has been filmed without consent and taken out of context. What the video does not show is that my stepdaughter, Caroline, has a long history of mental instability and aggression. She came home last night in a manic state, threatening me and my husband. We had to lock the door for our own safety while we waited for her to calm down. We love her and are getting her the help she needs. Please respect our privacy during this difficult time." I read it, and for a second, the old fear gripped me. Maybe they will believe her. I thought, she is so convincing. She always wins. But the internet is a different kind of beast. It dissects, it analyzes, and it hates a liar. "Mental instability?" Naomi replied instantly. "Monica, I was 10 feet away. Caroline was standing still. She was asking for her keys. You were the one screaming. You were the one who threw the punch. Stop gaslighting." I am an ER nurse at Aurora Heights. A woman I didn't know commented, "I have worked with Caroline Mercer for 4 years. She is the most level-headed, professional coordinator we have. She runs the trauma board during mass casualties. Calling her unstable is a joke. She is a rock." That comment made me burst into tears. I didn't know who she was, but she had stepped in front of the bullet for me. Also, another user pointed out, if you were so scared for your safety, why did you open the door again to throw her purse in the snow? That does not look like fear. That looks like spite. "And why is she the one leaving calmly in an Uber while you are screaming like a banshee?" someone added. "The body language tells the whole story, lady. Give it up." The tide wasn't just turning. It was crashing down on her, the mental health excuse, which she had probably used to explain away my behavior to her friends for years, had backfired spectacularly. Instead of making her look like a victim, it made her look like a monster trying to smear the reputation of a healthcare worker during the holidays. My phone buzzed again. It was a direct message from the Bright Horizons Foundation page. Caroline, this is the vice chair of the board. We have been tagged in a disturbing video. We are trying to reach Monica, but she is not answering. Can you please call us? I stared at the message. A day ago, I would have called them to smooth it over. I would have lied. I would have said, "Oh, it was just a misunderstanding. Monica is under a lot of stress." I typed a response, my fingers steady this time. "I cannot speak right now. I am seeking legal counsel regarding the assault and the illegal eviction. The video speaks for itself." I blocked the account. I looked around my empty apartment. It was cold. It was bare. But for the first time in my life, it felt like a fortress. They couldn't get to me here. And for the first time, I wasn't the one who had to hide. Across town, in the big white house on Elm Street, I imagined the chaos. I imagined the notifications pinging on Monica's phone like a countdown to a bomb. I imagined the silence of the phone not ringing with cancellations for tonight's party. I lay back on the mattress and closed my eyes. I didn't feel happy. I felt something deeper, something heavier, but infinitely more solid. I felt vindicated. The truth was out, and it was loud.